Live from Claris Engage, it's FM Training TV. And now your host, Richard Carlton.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to an awesome day of FileMaker Training. I'm Richard Carlton, creator of FM Training TV, where every day is an exciting day to be building in the Claris FileMaker platform. So today is day really one officially of the Claris Developer Conference, which is called Engage. It's 2025. We are excited to be here. We're going to be broadcasting today, tomorrow, and Thursday to a degree. Along the way, we're going to be talking to people. Today, so just to frame it, we're going to start off with a conversation about the keynote address. However, that being said, the executives are all swamped. So they've all been told to get with me and let's talk about the keynote and the messaging for the community, what's coming, what's new, all the important stuff. That being said, they are not here today because they're all busy in meetings as people are running around here. So I am in a super duper amazing studio. And we're going to show that to you momentarily here. I have a handful of slides that we're just kind of throwing together where we want to talk to people, talk about what went on today. I got Garrett here. He was here last year. As we bring people back to review the notes that Claris gives us at the keynote, like what is their mission statement? Where are they going? Why are they doing what they do? Why is it important? How does the community fit in? Is Claris making money? All these kind of important questions come up. So we're going to kind of plow through all this. Margaret, if you have questions, that would be great. We want to hear about questions today.
Yes, of course.
Real quick, I'm going to briefly share my screen real quick. This is all like completely to the max ad hoc of what's going on. So so what we're doing is we're going to show some of the slides and materials that are not confidential. We're going to comment on those as we go, but we want to bring up the fact that this is the first essentially Engage or developer conference in the United States where the new CEO has taken over at Claris. And there is an enthusiasm about this because Ryan McKeon is a different individual. Everyone's individual, everyone's different, but a lot of times you'll have someone come in and they were working with the previous person. And so one administration would be the same as the next administration. And McCann's very different. And so there's a lot of big announcements here at this event in terms of, I know it's much more optimistic than what it's been. As most of you know, I'm one of Claris's biggest advocates, but I can also be kind of grumpy when they endlessly ignore what we say, and then they're surprised by the outcome, right? Because most of the time when I warn them about something, they ignore me. Then I have to have a "I told you so" moment, which sucks because I'd rather them be right and them win. And so I want Claris to be successful. The platform's great, and I think that you're going to see some changes here with this new leadership team in the way they're executing. They're moving much faster than they were. Since Ryan came in back in Thanksgiving, a lot of people have noticed that the material and the things coming out of Claris are much faster, much higher iteration rate of what they're doing. And so there's a sense of urgency that's there. So with that in mind, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop open a couple slides here. And just to bring things up a little bit. So here's the first slide. This is Ryan, the new CEO. This is a much better picture of him over here. And we talked to him, and he's expecting us to talk in more detail with the executive team about the conference and their mission statement. But I think the fundamental thing to bring back and amplify is that Claris last year was profitable. They've been profitable pretty much every quarter. Sometimes I always wonder about, musical money and people saying they were profitable and they were, but Claris have been profitable for many, many, many years. In fact, this is year 40 for them. It's year 35 for me. So I've been around a long time. And Claris has been profitable all these years. So with that in mind, let me drop this out of the way. So I got Garrett here. Garrett was here last year. And you saw the keynote presentation. Basically, the short version of the conversation, I'm going to flip through here as we use up slides here. These are things that happened today. Let's talk about this one right here. This is a good one right here. So they were talking about profitability and users. I always tell people every day, more than 1 million people fire up and use the Claris FileMaker platform. And they have 1,400 partners, and they say 10,000 plus developers. I'm not sure how you have 1,400 development companies and only 10,000 developer. So that's kind of a funny, the partner is a company generally. And then the number of developers, well, no, that's 1,400. You could have 7 or 8 in each one, I guess. But yeah, my count was more like along the lines of they had closer to 50,000 developers. So I think that's somewhat of a number that fluctuates. But at the end of the day, the number that really matters is this right here: 1.5 plus million users, or over a million users a day using the platform. And the platform's been around for 40 years, right? So people say, well, it's old and out of date. Well, it keeps getting updated. But the point is, if you built a solution and kept it up to date over the years, it would still be running today. In fact, there are some people, Garrett, right, who they're like, hey, we're using FileMaker 4 and it's great, but we're thinking about updating it. It's like, that's a hard conversation to have because making that jump from version 4 to version 21.
I actually talked to a customer like that downstairs after the keynote. They saw Christian and I, and they came up to us, and they've got a solution that they started in like FileMaker 5 and 6, and it's just been running. And the reason they're here is because they're looking for, I think, someone to help them rebuild it or touch it or something. I'm like,
They were your customer or
no, just ran into two guys downstairs that it's just random. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
But this is important because as long as Claris is profitable, then they get to stay around, right? And we get to keep using their products. So
yeah, it's really great, and they're part of Apple and very successful. So we'll touch on these things. Once again, the keynote was under NDA. However, this is all material that has been talked about previously. We'll remind some of you have not seen it. There were some in the weeds details that they talked about, and including in the other meetings I had yesterday where they were even more secretive about what they're doing. I don't think any of you can draw that. I will say you can draw your own conclusions logically. If I get to a point and I say I can't talk more, but draw your own conclusions, most of you, knowing me, would be able to draw the conclusion of what's coming or what the likely direction is. But the company, there's a lot of companies in the low code kind of space. Claris is funny because it's low code, but it's also pro code. There's a lot of professional, and Claris is starting to endorse that. And I'm going to pivot to this momentarily, but a lot of these companies are startups. They haven't been profitable. They're not profitable. Claris is profitable, notwithstanding the fact that even they're attached to Apple. And Apple uses a lot of FileMaker. People always say, Apple's going to get rid of Claris. I'm like, where'd you hear that? Well, they don't make as much money as the iPhone. I'm like, dude, Garrett, Garrett, one of Garrett's customers is Apple. So we're in an Apple building right now. We're in this really nice studio in here. One of your customers, Apple. There are a number of FileMaker developers who support Apple operations outside the company. So what percentage of Apple do you think operates with FileMaker running the operation? What percentage? Best guess.
I don't know a percentage, but I have not run into a department that doesn't have something running in FileMaker.
Yeah, my gut is somewhere between 20 and 30% of Apple operations run in FileMaker, which is crazy, in a good way. It's like, wow, they really see the value of that. But Apple's a very creative company. And I was talking to Margaret about this. Creative individuals love FileMaker. They love solving solutions in it. Steve Jobs, before he died, was using FileMaker and would talk about that, right? So let's talk about the trajectory. This is an important one. So Garrett, I'm going to let you riff on this a little bit. This is a slide that's come up a number of times. And I'm going to tee this up and then I'm going to let you riff on it. So Claris has identified the secret to their success, and it's not overly complicated. Yeah, so Claris someone will identify a problem that they have, and someone will then build a basic FileMaker solution to address that problem. Fairly light solution. It solves maybe one problem. It may be shared with a team of people, maybe not. And so you identify the problem as number one, and then someone, either a developer or someone in-house, a lot of you on the live stream are at this level, and these people, and you build the first solution and you get it out the door, and then someone says, hey, this is really great. What else can you do with FileMaker? And then what happens is the color changes in here a little bit. So what happens is that the developer community, some of you will build an initial solution, and then you'll be going, well, I have a day job, right? And do I really want to learn about FileMaker to the point where I can build a professional solution? A lot of you are here. You want to do that. You are that person. So, and that's my goal, is to help all of you take the next step. That was a whole 60-day training. We're going to make you better. You're the progression of learning from the novice to the intermediate to the senior person. And so Claris has specifically identified that progression of learning. They don't call it those words because then you'd have to write me a check, copyright, patented, Richard Carlton, whatever. So trademark. But the idea is that the first solution, you get your initial success, that low hanging fruit. Then you build something else. Now the question, do you build it or do you bring an outside developer in? And Claris says a lot of times, in fact, more than half the time, the person will bring in a professional outside developer that helps with this process. And what happens is you start chipping away at the problems in the company, the inefficiencies, and maybe this person's learning along the way. In fact, they had a success story. They talked about the Japanese railway system, I think. And I didn't fully understand if it was government or private or whatever, but they brought in a developer to help the people learn. The Japanese people in the country constitute a third of all of Claris's sales. So 1/3 is the Americas, 1/3 is Europe, and 1/3 is Asia Pacific generally. Okay. And I guess that includes Australia too over there. But the Japanese are huge in FileMaker because it's a creative tool, one, but it leads to high organization, high efficiency problem solving. They outline this in a fantastic video. So they had this. And then they started building on this as a solution with a professional developer. And then some of their own employees were like out in the field who are trained engineers, things like that, are seeing problems and they're building FileMaker solutions until you get to the point where the organization kind of is really transformed. So, I mean, this is a big one for Claris to, hit this and repeat this, Garrett.
Yeah, I think that was one of the big messages in the keynote. I felt like was Claris really starting to lean into the developer community and realizing that there's a symbiotic relationship there, that they're creating the tools, and then in order for us developers to take it to the next level and to be their favorite word the last couple of years, problem solvers for them, and to create solutions. So this is a graphic they've used a few times now, but it's how they see getting new users into their platform, right? They create the tools, they get a new user to identify the problem, to take that first step in creating that solution. And then it's almost like there should be a split there, right? On that graph where once you that third step in that kind of line up is extending the solution, and like they said today, it's really two different tracks. Either you're getting a professional developer involved, or you're getting your own training and taking it to extend the solution. So really that there should be a split there on that graphic. And then at the end of the day, you're transforming how your business does business by creating workflow software, which is where I love this other graphic that you just brought up as well. What that creates is magic. I mean, I think this is a great slide. You got a problem solver. That's you, that's me, that's any developer, plus a professional developer, plus the Claris platform, Pro, Connect, and that equals magic. And that's where businesses get taken to the next level by what we create. So I love that slide there. And the other slide is a good one too, kind of show the progress of a FileMaker project.
Yeah, so Claris is over the years has kind of got where they would say, well, we're nothing without the developer. But the problem is they would then do some non-developer related shit, right? And so then you're like, well, do they believe what they said? Because they don't realize the dichotomy of kind of, weird things that go on that, if you're really out trying to, if the developer is the number one people that you want to take care of, then don't ignore them, but then they get ignored, right? So then things happen, the puppet comes out, some of you are like, hey, Richard's lost his shit. There comes the puppet, right? But I'm seeing less of that, and in talking to Ryan McCann, the new executive, and watching the conversation yesterday morning, so that was the meeting before you were in there, and we're talking about the AI conversation. So everyone's talking about AI. So Claris's initial foray into AI has some issues. Okay. And I don't think the executive team is aware of what the issues are. I don't run around and promote that part of it too much. It's the semantic search. It's an idea of having a plain English search and having it work. It doesn't scale, right? It's one of those sort of things that like, hey, we have something, but do I really want to promote and push as a professional developer? Because I never want to have a conversation where I have to apologize for, someone's bad behavior or the software's bad behavior. So sometimes marketing gets ahead of itself and they start talking about things in AI. And for me, the transformative AI conversation was when I was at a customer once again, and remember the mechanics, right? And the mechanics are doing a voice dictation, and they're hanging on top of a greasy helicopter, doesn't vehicle, car, boat, whatever, it doesn't matter. And they're making a dictation about what they see. This is broke. This is a thing, and I'm going to put the new screw in the McWidget, and then whatever it'll be repaired. And what ends up happening is that was always technology we could use. We could get a text translation of the voice dictation into text, but it was always kind of rocky. It wasn't great. Like I remember Dragon Dictation from 20. Garrett, you're probably 15 years old when that came out. They'd spend an hour training the software to how you talked. And then we found out that the software then the audio dictation business that 30 NASA has identified 30 or 40% of the population, they call them goats. And I'm like, what the hell does that mean? It means that every time you talk, 30 to 40% of the population changes their voice or does something or throws their voice out, and the software couldn't deal with it. So along comes 20 years later comes AI, and through the algorithms they're using or whatever they were doing on that end of to make it work, we're getting great translations in context. Wonderful. So suddenly you have an AI benefit that's measurably useful to the customer, right? And so semantic search, interesting is the idea of having a plain English question, and ask FileMaker a question, and it goes through the data and tries to find an answer. And I was like, right. But now they're talking about the next steps, Garrett, right? Which was part of it is bringing kind of additional capabilities, but also the idea of we see a lot of people doing demos where, hey, I need to build a JavaScript page that does this, this, and this, or in SQL or something. And the idea is it builds it for you, but they're really not FileMaker centric. So what if FileMaker could talk to an AI or an AI could talk to FileMaker and it could help build a solution?
Yeah, and they showed some use cases. I don't know how much of that is going to make it into the actual product or whatnot, what they showed. But basically, the idea is, say you open up a calculation window and there's some sort of box over on the side where you can put in real English or real language, I shouldn't say real language, and ask it to write you a calculation for something. Like I need a calculation that gives me, the next 2 days, 2 weeks in business days or something like that. And basically it would talk to the model and write the FileMaker calculation. So they that's next version or so. It's not right now, but the idea, I think the idea that they are thinking about it to help developers in that way is the takeaway point, that they're once again thinking about the developers and not and that relationship of their software plus the developers is where the magic happens. So rather than them just trying to solve something in a black box solution, they're giving the developer the tool to be able to do it, or to do something faster, or to do something easier. And they showed another potential solution where you could actually load through FileMaker server, being able to load your own language models on there and stuff like that. And just once again, stuff that we can do right now, but being able to have more control over it and to load it easier into your system. So I think the overall confidence and the overall conversation has really been, hey, it's us plus the developers, and that's been a promising turn of events, I would say, in my opinion, at least in the last 6 months or so.
Yeah, to continue to execute on the idea that the developers really the people here in this conversation on the live stream here. But all of you are kind of critical in this, right? You're a critical part of this. The person who has the issue, maybe they're a power user within the organization. These two people may be the same person or not, but frequently it's at least two people. Someone with a big need, someone who has some skill, and then you have the Claris, the FileMaker platform here, right? And so Claris is identifying that and going after that. I think what you're seeing is all the common ideas of AI and where it can fit, and Claris is working to invest in those areas and bring them into the product. When that happens, I'm not sure. Now, to be clear, Garrett said this, I'm going to reemphasize this, is that we can do most of all this now to a degree. But what it does is, if you're Margaret, can you bring up the progression of learning real quick for me? I don't have it in front of me. Share your
Yes.
screen, pop the progression of learning, and then I'm going to draw on this. So Garrett, this is all the stuff you missed. When Garrett's busy building solutions for Apple, this is what I'm doing the rest of the day, training. So over here, we have this is mostly people that we're talking to here training. We have some of you that are in here, some of you in here. There's a handful of you that are all the way up here in the super certified ninja level. And the idea is that you can do AI up here all day. That's already in the product, okay? But the idea is for Claris to somehow find a way of bringing that back downhill, making it easier for people to invest in that. So if you could make AI easier to install and run at this level or run at this level, I don't know if we'll ever quite, maybe down here, Margaret, the idea that he could help you with a calculation with plain English, right? I need a calculation that gives me, compounded interest rates based upon a 5-day week, blah, 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 and a 2-point whatever, blah, 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 and an APR, and blah, blah, blah. And you're like trying to figure this calculation out, and it just does it. Now, part of that is there was a joke the other day. Someone said the AI came back and said, well, I could do this for you, but then you're not going to learn anything. So I'm not going to do it for you because then you'll never learn how to do it yourself, right? And so that's already caused problems in the U.S. Army. It's already caused problems. Excessive overuse of automation has caused degradation of baseline skill sets. And so there's something to be said, and watch out for that. I'm not going to, get me into that cart wheelhouse, but the more automation there is, then, do you know the basics? Can you handle the basics? The AI is great to help teach you. Or if you're a developer, you're trying to get something done faster. The other thing that came up, and I'm going to let you take a swing at this and what you think on this, but people are going to say to me, well, the AI is, because they didn't show this. But in my mind, you could go to the AI and say, I need a new report. And so this and this and this and this, it's going to have this data, this data, this data. And the AI can look at the database, see the structure of the database. They did kind of show that today a little bit.
No, they did. Ronnie showed that.
But
demo
did he actually create a new report?
He did. So
I missed that part. He actually created a new. Oh, it did.
He did. Yeah, Ronnie showed the demo where he was essentially talking to the AI. He wasn't even typing. He was talking to the AI. And once again, this is a demo that was in a future version, so this is not live. But he was talking to the AI and he asked it, hey, I need to know how many, what's my sales data from my sales agents in the last quarter? And it went ahead and created a chart for him. And then he said, that's great, but I don't understand how you're getting this data. Can you show me a graph of how my table structure is? And the AI is actually tied in to FileMaker under the hood, and it created a graph. It wasn't like the relationship graph, but it was an
ERD. That was an ERD.
Yeah, of the table structure within FileMaker, and showed, how the data is related together. And he's like, okay, cool. I now understand that. Now, can you create a report for my sales meeting? I need a quarterly report that shows whatever. And it created it. And then he said, hey, that's great, but I also need to send this to my Latin America office. Can you put that in Spanish for me? And it translated. And he said, I need a copy of it. So it actually left the English one on screen and created a Spanish version, one side by side. It was pretty cool stuff.
Okay, so you see that. Then someone comes on the show, and Margaret, has anyone asked this question yet? They're going to put me out of business. And they addressed this in the meeting yesterday. You weren't at, but I'm going to let you take a swing at this, right? Someone said, well, is this going to put us out of business? If the AI can build this, then I don't have a job anymore as a developer. What's your thoughts about that?
So the AI is only showing you what some developer has already built in the system. So if you don't have that structure, and to build and the data going in, then it doesn't have anything to build on. So the AI is giving you tools, um, but it's up to you as a developer to take those tools and to build to solve the problem, if you will, for the
Yeah,
solution.
I hit Garrett with this question is grossly unfair of me to hit him with this question because he wasn't prepared. Everything you're saying here is not practice. This is senior FileMaker developers shooting from the hip without having it wordsmithed and pre-processed and pre-thought. So, and what Garrett just said, I know what he meant, but it didn't quite come across. Is the AI is showing you based on its basic understanding, and can look at the structure of what you have, and if it understands what a sales order is and terminology like this. But the trick is, as a developer, you have to work with the customer. You have to get to the point where you build the structure of the file, and maybe the AI can help you along the way, but there's limitations of what it can do, and it understanding workflow. Like if you say, show me the total of sales, the idea of what a sales is, and most of us here, if we say, show us what sales does, sales to us means money that's changed hands and it's in the piggy bank and whatever. But odds are, if I went to the AI and show me all what aircraft mechanical things are going on and what's the discrepancy and how's that going to look like on the airframe and engine logbook, the AI is going to barf and flip upside down dead. And so part of this is training the AIs, getting them to
Correct.
understand. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's something that was obviously not shown, but yes, any AI model is basically like a newborn baby, right? You still have to teach it what what to look at, and two, what the terminology that your business uses, not just the terminology, but okay, when I say sales, I mean, the invoice table and this field, and like, so you have to train an AI model what to look at. So then when someone uses real language, it knows, okay, real language equals this. So when I say sales, I mean this. When I say sales reps, I mean this. When I say this, I mean this. And so that's where, um, a developer still has to do that work. Someone still has to train it by feeding it data and documents and stuff like that.
You have a developer, but it's a word that we see a lot. It's even our company name, Richard Carlton Consulting. But really, there's times where we don't do any consulting. We do just development. And then there's time where we do consulting and no development at all. And the idea is that take this away for those of you like worried about, like if I was in the newspaper business and then internet comes over and wipes out the newspaper business, this is not that thing because there's no clear path where this can do what we do, at least not in anything we're seeing as of yet. We still have to be able to articulate and consult with the customer and work our way through these items. And as Garrett said, train it. What you're going to find historically, and this is always every time there's new automation, the customer is still going to say they have a budget for the project, say they're going to spend $50,000, right? That's not uncommon, okay? They're going to spend $50,000 and build some custom software. They're still going to have $50,000 to spend, right? The question is, Garrett, what do they get for the 50,000? If you
Yeah.
go back 20 years ago, 50,000 just adjusted for inflation, so it'd be 30,000 or 25,000 years, 20 years, 30 years ago. They're going to get much further with the newer modern technology for the same amount of money. Yeah, I think that's the critical part. So the customer's always going to spend the money. You're still going to make do the project work, but the customer's value for that will be almost never do I ever have anyone say, it's like the same conversation. Well, you're going to put me out of a job, right? So you have 10 like bumpermen going to Garrett's customer. I blew the doors off there. I didn't tell you about this. I flew over their building low again the other day because they're at the same place where I'm at in Mesquite. Yeah, I blew their doors off with the helicopter. And so what happens is that they came in, they say, we're going to save all this money, right? And and so then Bumper Man promptly saved the money and they turned around and fired a bunch of people. Oh no, that didn't happen. What did they do?
Okay.
They take all the people, and if maybe they spent 8 hours a day doing their job, now they're spending an hour or two a day doing their job. What do they do for the other 6 hours? They gave them something new to do. there's some other job that they did. They added to their skill set, but I've seen once ever where a company laid a couple people off because their jobs were replaced by automation. Most time they don't run around and chop people. They they go after like maybe new business development, or we're going to expand what we do to other areas and make more money, right? Very rarely um, do you see people, at least in small, medium-sized business, doing that. If you're in a factory floor and you're building 100,000 cars, Garrett, Debski Motor Incorporated, and you're building electric cars, and they're all hand built, and then you have AI build them with robotics. Some of those workers might be in trouble, but as
Yeah.
a professional in the world of I want to say people are going to find something new for you to do.
Yeah, and I think they said it actually in the keynote today was that I think he said their goal was to be the number one software for small and medium-sized business. I mean, that's the first time I've heard them articulate that. And
It was very deliberate. You notice that? Yeah,
yeah, it
very
was, and
deliberate.
and they said it's not just our goal, it's it's a realizable, I don't know. It's a goal that we can actually realize, right? Like because we've been in the market for now 40 years. We have the backing of Apple. We're owned by Apple. We're not, just one of these startups like Richard talked about a few minutes ago. You got all these, low code companies coming into the area that have no backing. Like they've been around for 40 years. They've got the backing of Apple. And I think as part of that goal to be the number one software, AI is an important play because these small and medium-sized businesses, their budget can now go so much further because we can use AI to give them extra abilities for the same amount of capital. So I think it's an important play. And I think there's just going to be a lot more use cases over the next couple of years on how to use this.
Yeah, I think AI is going to be like the internet was, and the internet came in. You were already doing stuff for me, but the internet. I remember we had individual computers and we had local networks, and we had FileMaker running on a local network with a laser printer, and that was the cool thing to have. The internet comes along, gives us all these other capabilities, and this will be another tool like that, right? It's just going to increase the number of awesome things that you can do. This right here is 40 years of Claris. These are all, so when I started with FileMaker Pro 1/2, that's the top left boxes in this picture right here. Margaret, you see this screen right here? Yeah. And then it goes all the way down to the current box, which is, kind of down there in the corner. So Margaret, questions? It's been awful quiet.
Are there any upcoming features for a new version of FileMaker you can talk about?
They talked about that. I think they're all so the AI stuff is pretty much, they're on the way to delivering some of that. And I don't know what the timeline is for that. But clearly they are working on their next version, which theoretically would be, I don't know, they keep incrementing the number by one. So the year is 2025. The version that comes out this year should be 25.
They showed a couple things. I mean, they showed the AI built into calculation engines. They showed if you have a group of objects that are grouped, being able to remove objects from the group without ungrouping everything.
Really?
Yeah. So they showed that. They showed redesigning
code folding a little bit.
Code folding in scripts. They showed being able to put custom functions into folders, and I think it was custom functions, maybe it was valueless. It's something else. They're being able to put them into folders. They're redesigning the interface on the Mac.
All right, so let me back that one up just a little bit to help everyone with that one. So it's not a total redesign because you could take that 100 different ways. One of the issues has always been that Claris, the FileMaker platform, has been built organically over a lot of years. And the issue is that there's probably been 500 engineers that have worked on it over the years, at least. And every one of them does it slightly different. Different teams do things different ways. And the rub is that as you progress of the application, there's little bits of behavior that still work that they keep it working, but it's like they designed it 20 or 30 years ago. And the rub with that is that it's not consistent behavior. And so Apple has said, hey, if you want to ever sell this on the Apple App Store or things like that, or Apple to really super promote it, we need to beautify it and make it kind of consistent. So there's an effort in there to take all the little areas that behave differently. And it doesn't matter what they are. I mean, I would drop this in front of all of you, and all of you would be instantly at home with what's going on. Layout mode, largely the same. They just kind of they polish it and they want to make it behave consistently, right? Does that make sense? And that's a good thing. Because right now, if you play with it, people go, what the hell? And it's confusing. And then some of it, like try to go into tabs in layout mode and rename the tabs. And you'll do it wrong if you watch the show and you do anything else in FileMaker, you'll do it wrong the first call, and it won't save the changes for you. And so it's stuff like that that have to be fixed. And I'm over here going, yeah, it's like one of those things that like, this should have been done. Now they're going to take it serious and do it. It's really good. I don't want to get too far in the weeds because I don't know how much they want us to announce on that. But they are due for a major update this year.
Yeah.
It'll probably be called 22 because they keep adding one to it. So in the year 2025, you're going to use version 22. Questions from anyone?
Huh.
Well, you have some snarkiness there. I can handle some snark. Feel free to load snark into the torpedo tube for me.
Have they mentioned anything about FileMaker Free?
Okay, that is.
You did request.
No, they did not.
Thank you, Garrett.
Well, yeah, Garrett's not in the middle of that conversation. That is not a dead conversation. Let me just leave it like that.
I don't think, yeah.
Yeah, just let that one go, okay? Because I'm in the middle of that one with some other people. So that is not dead. So we'll just leave it at that for the moment. So is it tomorrow? No, but we might be able to figure out how to do a test run with that, right? And I'm going to need all of your help to do that. I mean, I'm going to do the heavy lifting, but I'm going to need all your help. And Miles over here, you can't see Miles over here. He's in the Apple studio. I could turn the camera so you could all see Miles. Should we turn the camera so we could see Miles? Here he comes. He's going to hide his face in shame as I knock over the drinks. We're in this really nice studio over here. You probably can't see this. Can they see this? There he is. Look at we're in like a legitimate Apple Hollywood TV studio. Look at all the lights in here. It's all bright, shiny lights. So yeah, clearly with Claris and what's going on, they want us to live stream. They want us to talk about this. We're going to bring executives. We're going to drill into this. The FileMaker free freemium offering, they have an interest in doing it. I think I'm going to propose a plan for that, and we will see if they go for it. Okay. And if not, that's fine.
I think some of the stuff that they're gearing up for, introducing the AI, so then brand new developers can get in and do something faster. Cleaning up the interface like we just briefly touched so it can get into the App Store. I think some of that stuff is necessary to have that conversation. I don't think it's a non-starter without some of that stuff right now. So
yeah, well, Apple's not, it goes back to conversations that predate anyone here. And that was that Claire, you've built FileMaker over the years and it has all these little different design styles and patterns and inconsistencies in it. The running joke was that FileMaker was too ugly to be on the Apple App Store. Literally, those words came out of a certain Apple executive once upon a time. And so it's not that it can't be fixed, is that they have to put time and effort into that. And then Apple puts it on the App Store. Then what happens? That helps some, right? Yeah, so that's all kind of big picture stuff, and then we're well out the weeds into speculation. I can simply tell you that the free end of things is not dead, and there is active planning on that side from at least, yeah. But it's not approved, and therefore we can't talk about it.
What's the news on the studio?
It's better, and do I want to use it yet? I don't know. Right?
My opinion, so when they first announced Studio years ago now, feels like a lifetime ago, I was very excited about it. Have not touched it. I've seen enough in the last 5 hours today that I now want to go play with it. Am I going to recommend it to customers yet. Probably not. But it's promising enough that I am personally going to go mess around with it and see how far I can get with it. Um, so I think they showed some AI features they're working at baking into there, and it seems like there's enough substance there to now, in the right situation, maybe do something with it. So
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that. I think that's the trick with this is to figure out where it fits. And my biggest concern, like once again, we talk about this in the live stream, and hopefully all of you are developers have a rule that or something loosely like this. I never make promises to customers, and I tell my engineers not to make promises to customers unless you've built something before, because you don't want to get into it, say, oh yeah, it'll do this and do this and do this. And I want Studio to process a credit card and then do this and this and integrate with QuickBooks and do all this stuff. And then you get into it and suddenly it doesn't do it. And so you have to go back to the customer, explain that A, you were wrong, and B, somewhere in there's a conversation of, do you really know what you're doing?
yeah. And I think in framing the conversation, a lot of what they showed, you really can't use, in my opinion, you really can't use Studio unless you're also going to use Connect. So it's kind of if you're looking at using Studio, you've also got to use Connect, because Connect is really what connects Studio to FileMaker Pro, and that's where the real power comes in, obviously. So it's kind of a full platform approach. And once again, it's something I think there's enough either full there now or will be there shortly that I think it will become a tool for the right situation. It's not a across the board, hey, we're just going to do Studio on everything. FileMaker Pro is still the rock star in the platform. FileMaker Pro is still what we recommend to every single customer. Studio is just another tool like WebDirect, like FileMaker Server. It's a tool that you can use to do certain things.
Well,
So,
it's a lot like AI. AI is kind of this loose thing. Studio is actually a web page that you log into, but they're both in that similar sort of way. They're really interesting. They're getting better. And how much of that can you really use in a practical sense? So,
yeah,
yeah, Ronnie Rios is here. He did a great shot at him today. He was presenting. He's kind of the
AI guru.
yeah, he's a product manager really that revolves around the AI conversation. So Robert Halsey's doing Studio and Connect, and Ronnie Rios is doing the AI part of the conversation. Rick Kalman was back. For those of you wondering about that, we were waiting to see what happened with that. He's been back. It's really interesting, some things he said to me, and I'm going to repeat what he said from the standpoint that the whole idea with Kalman is that he has been gone for 4 months, right? And he's back in this role where he's kind of doing advocacy. So it's a little bit different job than when he had there before. Um, and he feels like he's a little bit out of it, been out of it for 4 months. I remember, me going off to flight school, coming back to FileMaker after 3 or 4 months, and I'm like, holy, I feel like I've forgotten a bunch. And really you haven't, but you just feel overwhelmed. And he said to me yesterday, he goes, I don't know what's going on. He goes, but in the last 4 months, Claris has done like a year's worth of work, what they would normally do in 4 months
Wow.
that I've been gone. And I went, well, because they got rid of your ass, is my smart ass answer, right, Margaret? Um, and the funny part of that though is that you have a new executive who has a very singular focus on executing on certain things. And I think the phrase was there was a sense of urgency to push on this stuff to get it out the door instead of showing stuff and promising it. And then all of us wringing our hands and Clarice popping out and us having a therapy session. I mean, people wonder why Clarice exists. Partly as a therapy for me. I need therapy sometimes, right? Because you want something to happen, it doesn't happen. I have to talk to all of you. I feel responsible in a lot of ways for what Claris delivers to you, and to articulate that in a good way and to prepare you for what's coming and to make you more awesome. And anytime I can't do that, I feel bad. And so Claris we have to have a chat with Claris. So there's a sense of urgency with what's going on at Claris. I don't think like panic, but urgency, like we got to do this, get your asses to work, let's go. And because Kalman came in and was stunned, he was like, wow, they've done a lot and I haven't been gone that long, right? So very, very exciting from that end of things. I mean, the proof is in the pudding, shall we say. They have to execute, but now I think they have an executive team who understands the mission, and they're on board with the developer community and supporting the developer community. And then I hope as we have conversation with them, they will internalize that. And they can't do everything we want. There's no way. But picking the top items, Garrett, and what would be your top items for them off the top? Like what are important to you, right? I mean,
My top items right now, I think, are just getting the stuff that's there actually fully working so we can use it. So getting Studio and Connect to actually be usable in real world situations, I think would be my first, because they put so much investment in it at this point.
Oh, I know.
They've got to get it to where developers can actually use it.
Where we want to use it.
Yes, where we want to use it, where we're actually using it, so we can actually give feedback and take it to the next level. That I think that's part of it. That was kind of, I feel like it kind of stalled out the last year. It's not right now, but I feel like kind of where it stalled out is they built this thing and then they weren't getting any feedback because no one was using it, and so it just kind of prolonged the process. But it was clear, that like you said, a year's worth of development in 4 months. I think it was clear, like their renewed focus and stuff on it across all the products. I mean, they showed the AI stuff, built into Studio, into Pro, into Server. It was built into all the products, and I think that it's pretty impressive, and the messaging was for sure going back to those original screenshots of the magic. Their renewed vision is, hey, the magic happens when we partner together with the developers, and I didn't feel like it was an empty message. I think the last couple of years it was either they kind of embraced it, but it kind of felt hollow. And
Yep.
it does not feel hollow this year. It feels like they're all in on it, and I think we're gonna see something special happen over the next year or two, if they keep on this path.
Yeah, I'm excited about that. And once again, sometimes it's just a new boss and a new team, but this all, the reason, some of us, we need therapy sometimes. This all started in 2019, right? And so we are here 6 years after the beginning of the cycle of where we're at. And some of us are like, man, I am so tired of this, right? Where we hear stuff, but we don't get it. Then over the last year, we start getting it. And now with McCann in there as the chief executive officer, they're really accelerating into this. And I'm not just sitting here making shit up, right? You guys know that I don't do that, right? If I was concerned, I would say it, or I would avoid well, we're at Engage. What's Engage? I have no idea. We're not going to go to Engage. We're not talking about that. But here we are. We're talking about it because Garrett has been one of the biggest outspoken critics of some of the Studio and Connect stuff, and now he wants to play with it. It goes from I want to play with it, or it's stupid. What are they doing? To I want to play with it, to then in 6 months or a year, or whatever, I have to have this get out of my way before I break your fingers. Right. Is how that conversation goes.
All right, everybody. Thank you for coming. We'll be back tomorrow talking about something related to Engage.
Something will happen tomorrow.
Go kidnap someone, okay? And then
we'll bring that on. Also, there's other announcements that we have too. So, all right, cool.
Okay,
Thank you.
Bye, everybody. See you soon.
No.